Welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 3. We're going to be analyzing the structure of arguments and counterclaims. So we want to look at and explore how arguments are structured. Just like a house, it needs a solid frame. An argument needs an organized structure to stand strong. Every argument is going to include a clear claim that's supported by reasons and evidence. But strong writers go further than that. They're going to address the counterclaims or the opposite opposing viewpoints. So by the end of today's lesson, our goal is to understand how structure is going to strengthen persuasion. And when readers can follow your logic, they're more likely to be convinced by it. So an argument has a specific framework. The claim is your main position or your thesis. That's the central idea that you want readers to accept. Reasons are the logical explanations that support your claim. And the evidence, that's the facts, the examples, the data that we're using to make the reasons credible here. So a strong argument is also going to acknowledge the counterclaim, which is the other side's argument. And you want to respond to that with a rebuttal, showing why the opposing idea is a less valid or incomplete idea. And together, those parts are going to make your writing logical and balanced and persuasive. So you want to think of your argument as a 5-part structure. We want to start with an introduction that's presenting our claim and setting the tone. Then in body paragraph 1 and 2, you're going to develop your 2 main reasons. Each of those are going to be supported by evidence. And then body paragraph 3 is addressing the counterclaim. So this is going to show readers that you've considered multiple perspectives, and then you're going to respond with a rebuttal. And that rebuttal is going to explain why your argument still stands the strongest. And then finally, your conclusion is going to restate your position and leave the reader with like a final thought or a call to action. And this structure is going to make your essay logical, balanced, and professional. So, introduction paragraph, introduce the issue, present your claim. Body paragraph 1, give your reason, and then support it with evidence. Body paragraph 2, your second reason, and support it with evidence. And then body paragraph 3, counterclaim, and your rebuttal to the counterclaim, and then you're going to use a conclusion, which is restating that claim and giving a call to action. So you have 5 paragraphs right there. That's an essay. So a counterclaim is a statement that is going to challenge your position. It's what someone on the other side might argue. So including a counterclaim doesn't weaken your writing. It actually makes it more credible. It shows that you are fair-minded and that your argument can stand up to scrutiny. But a counterclaim always has to be followed by a rebuttal. Your response needs to explain why the opposing point is less logical and less accurate, or maybe even less complete. And without that rebuttal, the readers might be left unsure about where you stand. So a rebuttal is your chance to answer back to the opposing side. It's not emotional here, it's logical. A rebuttal uses reasoning and evidence to refute the counterclaim and show why your position makes more sense. So for example, if somebody argues that cell phones should be banned in school, maybe your rebuttal might say, while phones can be distracting, banning them completely removes valuable learning tools for research and emergencies. Notice how it's staying respectful and it's factual, and that's the key to effective rebuttal writing. So let's look at how a counterclaim fits into an argument. The claim here is school uniforms should be mandatory. So one reason is that they reduce bullying and they promote equality. And so a possible counterclaim could be uniforms limit student expression. But an effective rebuttal might respond, expression can still occur through clubs, art, and speech. Uniforms ensure fairness, not conformity. So that's just a short exchange that shows how acknowledging the other side can make your writing sound mature and balanced, while your rebuttal reminds readers why your argument holds stronger ground. So when you write counterclaims and rebuttals, the signal words are your roadmap for the readers. They're going to alert the reader that there's a shift in perspective that's coming. So you might use phrases like some may argue or opponents claim, and that's going to signal a counterclaim. If you use phrases like however or nevertheless, it's going to introduce your rebuttal. So using those transitions is going to help your argument stay smooth, and it's going to show that you're engaging thoughtfully with the topic rather than just defending your point stubbornly. So let's look at an example paragraph. We want the topic sentence to introduce a claim. We want the reason and evidence to follow. We want a counterclaim that acknowledges an opposing view, a rebuttal that refutes it clearly, and a closing sentence that restates the main idea. So here's our example paragraph here. Some educators argue that cell phones should be banned during class because they distract students. While it's true that phones can sometimes disrupt learning, banning them entirely ignores their educational benefits. Students can use phones for research, time management, and organization. Instead of banning phones, schools should teach responsible use. This approach supports both learning and accountability. So here we can see all parts. The claim that cell phones should not be banned during class, or that cell phones should be banned during class, which is the counterclaim. All right, here. So our claim here is that students should have cell phones. And so we're giving a reason why they should. We're using a rebuttal here to counteract the counterclaim. So we want to notice how the structure flows logically from problem to solution without aggression or bias. So now it's your turn. You're going to read a short sample argument paragraph and label each part. You're going to label the claim, the reasons, the evidence, the counterclaim, and the rebuttal. Then we want to discuss how each section supports the overall argument. So this practice is going to help you understand how strong writers organize ideas and anticipate objections. Remember, the goal is not to win, but to write in a way that feels logical and fair to your reader. And let's reflect on why structure matters here. A clear structure reflects clear thinking. When readers can follow your logic step by step, they're more likely to trust your reasoning. An organized argument is going to build credibility, while acknowledging counterclaims is going to show that you've examined multiple sides of the issue. Finally, a solid rebuttal shows conviction. It says, I understand your view, but here's why mine is stronger. Good writing does not avoid conflict, it manages it intelligently. So before we wrap up, let's practice. Let's choose an issue that you care about. Maybe school start times, curfews, or maybe it's social media use. I want you to write one claim, one counterclaim, and one rebuttal. Then explain briefly how including a counterclaim and a rebuttal made your argument stronger. You're going to notice that when you can anticipate the other side and still defend your stance, your writing gains confidence and credibility.